Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name's Megzy, and today I am going to be doing a book unhaul, book purge. I have about 9 books I'm removing from my collection. So I'm going to go over the reasons why I'm removing them, maybe a summary about the book if I can remember. And yeah, I think it's good to do these because I have a limited amount of space, and I just can't hold all these books anymore. So, if this interests you, if you like unhauls, please stick around and we will get started. The first book I am unhauling is something I got in a book bin. It is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. This is a really old mass market version, which might be like one of the earliest printings. Yeah, 1972. Book was published in 1970. This was okay. I understand that Morrison was undoubtedly a very talented writer, but I don't know if I necessarily enjoy reading her work, if that makes sense. I reviewed this book in my January wrap-up, and it wasn't quite what I thought because it deals very explicitly with childhood sexual abuse. There's a childhood rape scene in here. There was a lot going on. Like, I'm glad I read it, but it wasn't really what I was expecting, and so I don't need to keep this. The next book I am getting rid of, there's a crack in the spine, is Sex Object by Jessica Valenti. I don't remember when I bought this, probably 2016, 2017. This is about, it's kind of like a memoir, but it is a memoir. She writes about feeling sexualized from a young age, I guess, and a string of like bad relationships with men, and then she has like a drug abuse problem, and then she starts to become like a feminist writer, and she receives a lot of flack from men online. I don't remember like what the point of this book was, to be honest, and I don't remember it that well. I feel like it was pretty basic. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really need to read about this stuff. Like, bad relationships with men. Yeah, we're gonna pass on that. So the next book I am unhauling, I've had this probably since college, is Get Your Tongue Out of My Mouth, I'm Kissing You Goodbye by Cynthia Heimel. I looked Cynthia Heimel up recently, and I didn't know she died in 2018. She was kind of like a sex columnist with a funny feminist slant, I guess, in the 90s and 80s. She wrote a lot of these books, or a lot of these essays were originally published in Playboy, but they haven't really aged that well. They're very dated. I know when I was reading this in the 2000s, they were already dated. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was like interesting, but I don't need to keep this. I don't know. My kind of humor is not really this. She reminds me a lot too of Julie Klausner. I have a Julie Klausner book actually, but I'm gonna keep it. But that one I can get rid of. The next book I am unhauling is something I've had since maybe high school or early college. Female Chauvinistic Pigs, Women in the Rise of Raunch Culture by Ariel Levy. I've reviewed Ariel Levy's books before. I reviewed her memoir a couple months ago, and she references writing this book. This book is about raunch culture and is sort of a criticism of sex-positive feminism that says that women are being sold this guise of empowerment in ways that just look like it appeals to men and the male gaze. But it's very dated. It's definitely very 2000s. A lot of references to pop culture at that time, like The Man Show and Paris Hilton and Jenna Jameson, that aren't really relevant anymore. And I think the way she explores these ideas, I think there's value in what she's saying, but she comes across kind of moralizing-ish, of what I recall. There's a whole chapter on trans men that basically makes it sound like trans men only transition because they have internalized misogyny, which is so wrong and sounds like something a lot of transphobes, TERFs, say. Yeah, the book just didn't age well. I don't know. I've moved beyond this sort of like white liberal feminism. That's another thing too. She only focuses on like middle class white women. like, whatever, it was fine for the time, but we can now look back at it and say this is just not really well written. So I don't need to keep it in my collection. All right, now we're going to get into some fiction here. This is Laura Lamont's Life in Pictures by Emma Straub. I've kept this for so long, but this was so disappointing to me. I love old Hollywood stories about a girl who goes to Hollywood, but there's no plot. It's just she goes to Hollywood that I can remember, and then there's no cohesive storyline. It just follows her life from the 30s up to, I guess, the 70s. And I was like, I don't understand what the point of this was. 1980. You could just pick up any biography on a female actress in Hollywood and it would be more interesting, honestly. So I held on to that for so long because I was writing a novel that was about like a woman in Hollywood in the 40s, but I just don't find it. I don't need to keep space for it anymore. I have no desire to read any of her work. It is kind of chick lit-y. Like, it's sort of written like chick lit, but in a historical fiction sense, and you can kind of tell from the cover that's what it looks like too. So, not my thing. The next book I am getting rid of is a book I know I will not reread, and I was like, why have I held onto this for so long? John Irving's The World According to Garp. I don't remember this plot at all. I read it over a decade ago, probably in the early 2010s when I was in grad school, and I was skimming through it, some parts, and I just was like, no, I'm not going to read this. He makes fun of, there's a lot of weird Cavalier references to rape. They're not like rape jokes, but it's just odd the way it's referenced throughout. I mean, the very first scene is like the main character is conceived via rape because his mother rapes a comatose man while she's his nurse during World War II. I don't know what he was trying to say with this. I guess he was like making fun of radical feminists too, but it was so over the top, it beyond reality. I was like, this is no. I'm not going to read this, reread this. Okay, so we're going back to nonfiction. The Barbie Chronicles by A Living Doll Turns 40, edited by Yona, Zeldis, McDonough. I don't know. I got this in a used bookstore years ago, and I guess it's sort of like a feminist analysis / personal essays about Barbie. But it's like, how much is there to say about Barbie? I feel like it's all been said before. I don't need to hold on to this. I saw the movie. It was fine. I'm done with the feminist analysis of Barbie. Okay. The next book I am getting rid of, I just bought this book. I feel kind of bad, but I didn't spend money on it. I did get it with a gift card. It's the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This was okay, but it's not what I read generally. It's horror, and it's a typical vampire story that's a little cheesy. It was kind of gross for the sake of being gross at times. I don't really need to keep this. I don't know. I might hold on to it because I feel like I just got it, but I don't know. That one is a maybe. And then the last book I am going to Unhaul, I held on to this for a bit, is Mediocre, the Dangerous Legacy of White Male America by Ijeoma Oluo. This I picked up in the used book bin, and someone annotated the crap out of it. They wrote in it, and underlined it and put notes, which was annoying. This was okay. I reviewed it in my October wrap-up. Some chapters are stronger than others, and there's other chapters that just don't really land for me. Nothing is like particularly new or revelatory in here. There's certain chapters I didn't like when she talks about like, oh, we can have more gender equality in the workplace by having more female CEOs. Like, that's not how that works. I think she's really into, at least in this book, she believes that having like a marginalized identity almost therefore makes you more progressive and more radical, and then like you'll advocate on your like that identity's behalf. But that's just not the case. So I am curious to see how her views have evolved if she ever like writes another book, because I have followed her on social media. After I read this book, I was like, I would really love to know what she thought about the 2024 election and specifically Kamala Harris's campaign. So she's definitely changed. I think she is more radical now, but I don't really need this book. Like, there's nothing revelatory or new in here. And the most interesting chapter was about like Native Americans and Buffalo Bill and all of that. But yeah, whatever. It was fine. I just don't really need to keep it. So that is it. Those are all of the books I am unhauling. I think these books, at one point or another, I liked them, but I feel like I've outgrown them, or they were just mediocre and I don't need to hold on to them anymore. So that's it. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.